Oh, hey there, folks. Welcome to Advisory. Happy Monday of homecoming week. I hope you are all excited about the homecoming festivities this week. Don't forget about our dress-up days, like I did. Today is celebrity dress-up, to dress up as your favorite celebrity. Although one could make an argument that I dressed up as Shaggy from Scooby-Doo today on accident. I got the green shirt and the brown pants. Like Scoob, I almost forgot about Celebrity Dress-Up Day. Zoinks! Can you believe I did that without the voice changer? Anyway, don't forget about the other dress-up days. Tomorrow's Pajama Day. Wednesday is Generation Day. October 2nd, Thursday is Pick Your Future. And of course, October 3rd is our Orange Out for our homecoming game. Today in Advisory is Motivational Monday. And we're also still in the middle of Hispanic Heritage Month. So I thought that we would take a moment to look at Hispanic, Latino, and Mexican influence on Texas. And we're going to end the video by talking about Dolores Huerta, who was pivotal in some of the workers' rights movements back in the 20th century, and who still continues her activism today. After that, there will be a short discussion, so make sure you do that with your advisory groups. But I'll go ahead and let those videos have the last word. Enjoy those videos, be good to yourself and others, happy homecoming week, and I'll see you real soon.
Tejano culture is so ingrained in Texas that it is often taken for granted. And why not? Tejano means Texan. Regardless of your own cultural background, you cannot experience Texas without the Tejano. It is often the first and usually the most lasting impression for visitors to the Lone Star State. Here in Texas, many of our favorite foods are Tex-Mex, rooted in the old traditions of Spain and Mexico, but made with ingredients that come from right here. Imagine Texas without tamales, enchiladas, tacos, tostados, without the taquerias, without the tequila, without carne asada or cabrito. Impossible. And like the food, Tejano music has a unique flavor, not strictly Mexican, but influenced by all the cultures of Texas. Traditional forms of música norteña and conjunto get Texas toes tapping. And once mixed with American jazz, blues, and rock and roll, they blossom into a popular modern Tejano sound. Be sure to visit Little Joey La Familia Museum and Temple for a thrilling immersion into Tejano music. And it's common knowledge that when Little Joe is playing, everyone is there. The world of arts and letters in Texas also bears the imprint of the Tejano. Writers such as Americo Paredes integrated folklore and scholarship to share the Mexican-American experience, delivering a powerful new Texan voice and challenging stereotypes with vivid language. The Chicano movement of the 1960s and 70s reawakened the tradition of muralism, large, often political or spiritual-based paintings in public spaces, often on the site of buildings. These energetic and poetic images are a source of cultural pride and a celebration of heritage. They can be seen throughout the state, with concentrations in El Paso and San Antonio. Also, Tejano folklore and holidays are written in ink on the Texas calendar. Everyone in Texas is aware of the Mexican traditional celebrations Cinco de Mayo and Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead, and look forward to them with the same excitement as Thanksgiving and the 4th of July. After all, the Tejano was the original Texan.
As African Americans fought for civil rights throughout the 20th century, Hispanic Americans were engaged in a parallel struggle, even if it wasn't in the national headlines. Despite the fact that its first non-native residents spoke Spanish, Texas's story for many years had been told from a primarily Anglo point of view, which often cast the Tejano as an outsider. As a result, Tejano citizens in the early 20th century met prejudice in many aspects of their lives. Anti-Mexican hatred sometimes led to violence, beatings and lynchings, as well as more commonplace discrimination in the workplace and community. Up until the 60s, it was not unusual to find a sign on stores or restaurants that read, "No dogs, Negroes, or Mexicans." Tejanos were subject to the same Jim Crow laws and city ordinances used to restrict African Americans, disenfranchising Tejanos, segregating them, and depriving them of opportunity. In the 1920s, Tejanos reacted by forming organizations to protect their rights. Mutual aid societies, or sociedades mutualistas. One organization called Orden Hijos de América, or Order of Sons of America, formed branches throughout Texas and, using the U.S. Constitution as their hammer, cracked open access to schools, beaches, public facilities, and participation on juries. Over time, the Order of Sons merged with other Hispanic rights organizations, creating the League of United Latin American Citizens in 1929, dedicated to advancing education, economic power, political influence, housing, health, and civil rights for all Hispanics. This instrument for advocacy was eventually complemented by other civil rights organizations. In the 1960s, the farm workers' movement provided another powerful catalyst for awakening the country to inequality and unfair labor practices, an effort that achieved nationwide attention, affecting all Americans whenever they sat down to supper. As they worked tirelessly for civil rights, Mexican Americans also sought the next level of empowerment, ethnic pride. The Chicano movement, or El Movimiento, reinforced this effort, encouraging Hispanics to continuing activism and cultural expression.
Dolores Huerta is one of the most influential labor activists of the 20th century. A rebel, a leader, a proud Latina.
Down with racism! Abajo!
Huerta worked tirelessly to launch a workers' rights revolution during a time when the U.S. had a dark history buried in its farm fields and when some were afraid to fight for their rights.
And they said to me, "Oh, Dolores, no se puede." And so my response to them was, "Yes, we can. Sí se puede. Sí se puede."
She coined the popular protest chant decades before it would become an enduring campaign slogan for President Obama.
Everybody! Sí se puede!
Yes, we can.
In the 60s, Huerta, with labor leader Cesar Chavez, was at the helm of the first successful collective bargaining agreement, guaranteeing basic rights to agricultural laborers where there were none before. Her strength and determination helped shape one of the first farm workers' unions. And in turn, Huerta became a pioneer of modern-day social justice. She's a civil rights hero who's also a symbol of change. This is Dolores, and this is her story. Dolores Huerta was born in 1930 in New Mexico. Her parents split up when she was young, and her mother moved the family to California. Growing up, life wasn't always easy as a Mexican American.
We still have that, we still have that racism that exists that I had to confront when I was a teenager growing up.
Yet she would find strength in a strong mother.
My mother, being an entrepreneur, she always stood out. She always felt that women needed to be in leadership.
By her late 20s, Huerta noticed how horrendous life was for farm workers in California.
They were only earning like 50 cents an hour. They had no unemployment insurance because they migrated from county to county. They weren't even able to have any kind of access to the food banks. They had there were no bathrooms in the field, especially for the women. That was really horrible. So no access to drinking water. They would actually charge them for the water that they would give the workers. And of course, no rest periods. So they were pretty much brutalized. To step up from slavery, you might say that the legacy of slavery lives on.
It was the late 1950s. Many workers were being exposed to dangerous pesticides and had no health benefits.
The issue of pesticide poisoning, unfortunately, still continues.
By her early 30s, Huerta knew it was her calling to fight discrimination and help improve the lives of farm workers. Her first step, joining a grassroots group called Community Service Organization. That's when she met Cesar Chavez and her mentor Fred Ross Sr., a.k.a. the godfather of the farm workers movement.
It was always the men who took the role of leadership. And actually, Caesar and I did have that conversation, and he said, well, is it okay if I'm the spokesperson for the organization? And I said, of course, Caesar. I think we would have had that conversation today. I would have said, well, let's do it half and half.
By the 60s, both Mexican and Filipino farm workers employed in the United States were eager for change. In 1965, they started to strike against the Coachella Valley grape growers, known as the Delano Grape Strike. And from there, the United Farm Workers Union came to be.
In California, what you have agribusiness. So you have big major corporations that own thousands and thousands of acres of land. And so the numbers of small farmers, as we think about farmers, is very minute in the state of California. So these are very large landowners, and they employ thousands and thousands of workers.
When striking didn't do the trick, farm workers resorted to boycotting the grape business, traveling far and wide to spread the word. And companies began to respond.
That was grapes! Abajo! That was yellow wine! Abajo!
Within a few weeks of the boycott, they said, okay, we don't want anybody to boycott our liquor. They signed a contract, so we found out that it did work.
But reaching the entire country took time. Activists fought the corporate growers and President Nixon, who was supporting the growers by sending their grapes to soldiers in Vietnam. People across America eventually boycotted grapes.
We're able to get 17 million people to stop eating grapes.
It took 5 years for key demands to be met. When the boycott finally ended, farm workers were guaranteed some basic rights, a first in the history of the United States. After everything had ended, more than 20 California grape growers agreed to begin treating farm workers more fairly. Fighting injustice peacefully was key for Huerta. But when she was 58, she did encounter violence in San Francisco. She'd been protesting agricultural policies.
Presidential candidate George Bush I had a press conference in Fresno, California, saying there's nothing wrong with pesticides. The government takes care of people to make sure they're safe. So I drove up to San Francisco, and we were, protesting his statement that he made. And the police came in and started beating up people in the crowd, and I was one of the victims. They broke, I think, 4 ribs, and they never found my spleen. It was pulverized. He hit me so hard.
Now, on the verge of death after 30 years of activism, she knew it was time to take a break. She was able to reconnect with her 11 children, some who felt their mother had been physically absent from their lives for too long. But Huerta would never stop working for the people.
I actually stayed with the union for 9 years after Caesar died.
Discrimination and sexism were constants in her life as a woman in a male-dominated world. Most of her life, she'd never thought to take credit for her work. But later on, she came to the realization that speaking in favor of women and supporting her community were key for the future. In 2002, Huerta won $100,000 for the Puffin Prize Award. She used this to start the Dolores Huerta Foundation. In 2012, she was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Obama.
And on a personal note, Dolores was very gracious when I told her I had stolen her slogan, "Si se puede," yes we can.
Si se puede! Si se puede! Everybody!
The spirit of a people. Yes we can.
There are now 7 elementary schools in California named after Dolores Huerta, and the state of California named a day for Huerta in the month of April. Even today, she is still a steadfast and tireless activist, still on the road, fighting for human rights, working to end racism, and advocating for education.
We have a lot of work to do in our country to make sure that democracy works, and it can work.
For this social justice champion, clearing a path for farm workers and minorities to succeed has been a crowning accomplishment. But like trailblazers who came before her, Huerta realizes the fight is never over.
We just got to sacrifice a little bit so that we can, make our world a better place.
Dolores Huerta, a labor activist who struggled to break new ground for people across the country, still wants equal pay for women, health care for all, free education, and social justice.
When I meet farm workers and they see me, and the one thing that they always point out, the toilets in the fields. And I think when we translate that into dignity, giving farm workers the dignity that they deserve for the work that they do to feed our nation,